accepted.
Hello, my name is Piotr Nabielec. Let's talk about time management for engineers. Congratulations, you're the chosen one willing to learn about soft skills on a conference full of technical talks. So, what are we going to talk about? I'll do a short introduction. Why time management? What is it? Why you should care? What is the general, let's say, landscape of the time management for me? And then I'll share 4 concepts or hints that I find useful in the engineering world. And they are habits and habit containers. If you want to cut on sugar or want sleep or drink more water or things like that, it will be tremendously useful. Let's talk about forced productivity, a concept that spans your short-term productivity versus long-term, which usually one kills the other. Focus versus communication, that's probably a pain point for many of you. Like, should I really focus on what I do? Or should I do Slack? And then stuck in the middle. And the fourth area is avoiding burnout, which is in our world pretty common. And I think will be more and more common, and you'll know why. And then at the end, I would like to share, this clicker works like every the third time. All right, a call to action. So actually, when you exit this room, what you can do in practice. I'll share maybe 7 steps, but maybe you'll take some more, and then I'll try to leave about 5 minutes for the Q&A. And I'll be staying there somewhere on the corridor if you want to talk more. Time management is my passion, so let's go. Introduction and the context. I believe engineers have unique skills to understand algorithms because you understand algorithms, and algorithms run our bodies. Some of them are called emotions, emotion. So these are biologically programmed algorithms to speed up our decision-making processes. And if you understand these biology processes, if you know algorithms and how they use and how they are optimized, I think we have the key skills to understand it and master it. When I'll be talking about habits, you'll understand why. And many of you can very quickly change into architectural view. So we are very down into details, and suddenly in a few seconds you can think about big level, high level architecture, and then get down to the very detail. Not many people can do that, and in time management this is a crucial skill. To just see the big picture and then just get down to details. For me, time is similar to money. It's more about emotions. It's not how much you know, but how much you practice. And if you want to manage your time, you immediately understand how different it is in theory and in practice. You can read many books and then life happens. So let's talk about this more psychological parts that run our time management skills. Because ultimately, time management is about living a good life. Is living a good life engineering problem? And in my opinion, partially it is. And let's solve part of this equation. Why is it important? As a statistical poll, I have the data from our statistical body in Poland, which says if I'm a statistical Polish male, I'm 54% done with my life. That's life expectancy for an average male. However, if I'm diagnosed with a sickness and I'm just 1 year left, that will be my progress bar. That's what we manage. Okay, you can multiply how much you earn, you can multiply your income, you can multiply many things, you can inherit money, you can invest money, but time just running out, that's it. So I believe that's one of the crucial skills to master in life. So let's go to engineering. Let's switch to that. Let's define productivity, as it is defined in many books, as value divided by effort. I love this equation. I love coming back to this equation. I love the deepness, and I love meditating on that simple equation, simply because it's value divided by effort. When you be more productive, you think, okay, I'm happy with the value. How do I cut the effort down a bit? Or you're happy with the effort, you just want to increase value. Okay, I spend that much amount of time at work or at this specific task. How do I get more value? And then the question becomes, okay, what is value? How do I measure value? Because we want to maximize it. So actually, let's try it in practice. I think you already gathered here. If you guys from the back want to come and join, it's like sits in the front, still free. So let's try that in practice. So value divided by effort. Why do people come to conferences? You want to learn something new, and when you want to learn some or meet some new people. So let me help you. I will give you 2 minutes. You can just look around, find 1 or 2 people that you don't know, and just share what's your name, where you work, and what you do. That may be the quickest hiring ever. And I'll give you 2 minutes. You make new friends or just meet new people. That's what conferences are about. So 2 minutes for you. Let's go.
Mogę ci trzymać na kolanach, jak chcesz.
Dzięki bardzo, mogę trzymać.
Okay? Okay. So now I hope some of you got a value out of that simple exercise. You got 2 minutes of your time. You make, I hope, new friends. You can talk in the next breaks or tomorrow or today, whatever. This is what we're trying to maximize in all aspects. It can even relate to things like relationships. You could think, okay, this is how much effort I put in a relationship, how much value I get out of that. Or to your rest. Okay, I hope you had some good rest yesterday. It's like how, if I put 1 hour into my rest, how do I get maximum value? How do I feel really recharged? So you can also think about your life. Okay, when I'll be 74 and my statistical body in Poland says I'm mostly done, then my question will be, okay, what value did I get out of my life? Am I happy about it? So let's talk about these concepts today, because ultimately it's about a GPS. GPS is, what's the first question that GPS asks? Like normally people about time management are focused on goals. So you type your destination to your GPS, and what GPS does? Nothing. GPS has to know where you are, because if you don't know where you are, it doesn't matter where you go, because it doesn't know what to tell you. So this is something that we're usually missing. It's like, where are you right now, and where do you want to go? That are two most important questions to ask, and we cannot skip one or the other. That's, you know this guy? Okay, top 10 most wealthy people in the world, Warren Buffett. And he says in this famous interview with Bill Gates also, I can buy anything I want, basically. That's a nice problem to have. But he adds, okay, but I can't buy time. There's nothing more to do about it. So raise your hand if you know me for some time, or you met my work, or just to see how okay, just a few. So my background is engineering. I've been, that's Jerry, we're in Dallas. I've started in 2005, and we're trying to get that board running, up and running. I'm a Linux kernel driver developer at that time, and we're trying to make it alive. So I'm a hardcore engineer at heart, but then I moved to management and to trainings, and I love that. And I think if I stayed being a developer, even whatever language developer, I would be already burned out a few times, because I love the dynamic of the work. So that was the start. I'm also a musician. I play multiple instruments. And funny part is that after leaving this conference, I'm going to a hiking festival where I play as a DJ. So I love this connection of worlds, where there's something about science, about technology, and there's something about something you can feel. You cannot even sometimes name it, but it's, if you feel something, you know you feel it. You don't even have to name it. I love movement. I do a lot of body work. So meet me on a dance floor one day. The productivity work is last 8 years, and it's been a journey of classroom trainings like this and online courses. I have a Udemy course that has roughly 30,000 students right now. And so what I'd like to share with you are the lessons that I got from my own students, because I got a lot of feedback from young mothers and CEOs and different kind of people. I have one life, but I can learn from others, and then I can pass it to you. So hopefully you get something out of it. So let's talk about habits and habit containers. If you cut your brain like that, then if you simplify things a bit, we have 3 layers that are most important for understanding habits. The first is emotions. It's like very deep in your brain. Your brain already consciously or unconsciously made a decision if it likes me or not. Okay, I have my voice. It's a little bit nervous maybe now. If you like me or not, the way I move or the way I speak, it's like, oh, nah, or okay, this may be interesting. It's unconsciously made that decision. It's your primal brain that makes a lot of automated decisions which you actually cannot really influence that much. Then, on the other hand, this is something that we usually work a lot with, which is logic. Logic, understanding, language, and stuff like that. The biggest problem with that part of the brain? It's really expensive to run. We have a very finite energy on your prefrontal cortex, and when it's run out, that's what happens when most of you, or sorry, not most of you, some of you know what happens 10 p.m. 10 p.m. in the evening, you may be stuck in doom scrolling, or there's a hidden chocolate somewhere in this hidden wardrobe that you suddenly feel urge to eat and you cannot resist it. That means your prefrontal cortex is just out of energy. So what our brains does is it optimizes this thing with habits. So they are actually a way for your brain to conserve energy. So the things that are repeatable and the things you do in a constant way are condensed into small energy package that we can run on autopilot. That's basically what habits are. And the good news is that you have it in your hardware for free already. There's a listener in the background running in your brain for thousands of years. It just waits for a specific type of JSON packet to parse it, and if it matches a specific structure, you have habits for free. And if you master habits, it's like a compound interest in finances. Like you get multiple, let's say, how to say it, income? No. value is compound over time in a non-linear way. So if you invest in one habit now, and over time you will have, let's say, 10, 12 habits this year, and then over the period of 20, 30 years, you can build hundreds of habits that just run your life. And the most basic stuff that doesn't require that much energy will be run on autopilot, and then your prefrontal cortex is free to run a lot of the things that you would like to run. So how to do it? Let's assume that you want to start a very short exercise with breath work. Let's see if that works. Yeah, we want to breathe a bit. That's your task for the next 30 minutes. I don't know if you know 1 to 2 breathing or 4, 7, 8, anyone? So you have a sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. It's how much active you are. If you want to be active, have a lot of energy, sympathetic system is to run you. But then you want to fall asleep, and you can't, because you want your parasympathetic system suddenly to run. So a simple exercise, let's assume that a few times a day or just before sleep, you want to do this breathing. You can practice for the next 30 minutes. You do, for example, 4 seconds of breath in, like, and then 8 seconds of breath out. It's like 2 times longer. If you do this, CO2 will build up in your body, and you'll be much more relaxed. Your parasympathetic nervous system will activate and make you much more calm. And then you have, bam, more energy to shot another adrenaline spike. But how do we do it? Okay, so you may start practicing now, and if you try any new habit, you know how hard it is. So how do we install a habit in our lives? Anyone tried and failed? These are the stories that I have about people in my courses. So how do we make a successful habit deployment? Deploys fails multiple times. So if you read a book by Charles Duhigg, Power of Habit or Atomic Habits, that's just a short summary. The most important thing about the listener in your brain that forms habits is this, that it looks for a specific pattern of 3 components. The first component is the trigger. And I believe engineers know triggers a lot more than an average person. You know that our life has a lot of events. You woke up. Okay, you just had a coffee. That's a trigger. This guy finished a talk, or there's another talk, or, okay, let's skip that. But you know that your life has multiple triggers. Some of them you can say publicly, and some you don't. But even being angry is a nice trigger that you can install a habit, what you do when you get angry. Then what happens is your brain looks for action that doesn't require much horsepower. So it has to be automatic. There cannot be any decision involved. And if there's no decision involved, that means it's a candidate to offload the decision-making center. And if I see that this action brought me a reward, then I'm happy to close that loop, and it's called a habit loop. Now the magic happens, the real magic happens after some time. So when brain detects this pattern, even unconsciously, I can do a brain scan and see that consciously you say there is no pattern, but your brain already knows there is a pattern. And I can know it by scanning your brain. The 4th component appears, and it's the desire. This is the magic of habits. The desire means that the moment that your brain sees the trigger, it releases dopamine. And dopamine is this beautiful molecule that pushes you for action. This is a molecule of drive. And this is actually how habits are formed. You don't need to spend any extra energy from that moment, because the moment that the brain sees the trigger, it just automatically dopamine, and it pushes you to do the action to get the reward. So you're really well skilled to understand your triggers and the events that are already installed in your day. You may be using even some of them. So let's think a bit about dopamine. Because this will be a crucial component if your habit survives or not. So you can give a reward of food, there's some amount of dopamine, and every one of you is different. So you have to experiment with yourself to see which rewards work for you. Maybe you love this feeling of the task completed. Anyone has a task list on paper? It's like, this is this, yes. So this is this feeling. Another thing is praise. Well done, good job. Anyone receives that at work, you know that feeling's like, yeah, I could be coding for many hours and suddenly someone gives me praise, and this is a huge reward for the brain, being accepted, being seen. You could be rewarded with sex. That would be even better. There's only one thing better, which is writing documentation, of course. No, I'm joking, of course. But there are personal things, the things that drive me and my dopamine will not drive you. Okay, there are some patterns that we can recreate, but anyway, in the end, it's for you to experiment with that stuff. And when I was looking for a picture that would represent dopamine, I found this beautiful meme that I love. It's this one. Because dopamine is not about achieving something, it's about anticipation. So dopamine is anticipation of a reward. You can see dopamine in action. That's how it looks. It's I'm not having it, but my whole body is running. So that's all about successful habits are all about. So we can think about your day as a specific type of container. We have a day. Your day starts immediately with an event that's called waking up. And you can think about multiple events during the day, and you have containers. Like you have a container called morning. You have a morning routine. You wake up, then maybe you do coffee, you brush your teeth, or do any other stuff. There's already a container ready with multiple events. You just have to choose one, install your habit, and that's it. And if you spend enough time for this dopamine system to install the habit, you have it for free running for the rest of your life. Then you have another containers like lunch, or after work, you finished your work, and then, what do? You have a beautiful container out there. You can install multiple habits, and the great thing is, once you install one habit, it can become a trigger for another habit. And then you have your morning routine, or after work routine, or evening routine. Many people I talk to have these kinds of containers, but they miss a container for the evening cool down. Anyone have an evening cool down routine? Yeah, just some. So when you cut off your screens, what do you do? Like, what do people do with their lives if they don't have any screen access? Maybe you do breath work, maybe you do some exercising, maybe you talk, or maybe, you do other stuff. I'll talk more about one container that I love, and you can install in a minute, but let's talk about some other stuff before that. So those were habit and habit containers. I hope you understand that you can use this free hardware that you have in your brain. You have a listener, you just install a package, you keep a constant trigger, you keep a constant reward, you keep constant action that doesn't require much energy to make any decision, and bam, you repeat it, and the brain gets it and install a habit for you. There's no reward, no habit. There's no desire installed after some time, no habit. Trigger is changing, no habit. So how can you think about, so that was number one. Number two, which really helped people think about their productivity, is this four-step concept that I've been working on for the last couple of years. And it's pretty simple, because normally people, when they think productivity, they usually mean a very thin slice of the broad field of productivity, which was scary for me, because normally people say like Pomodoro technique, or getting things done, or like you have multiple not connected ideas, and I missed the architecture of the whole thing. So when people think about productivity, they usually think about, okay, how do I organize my day? What do? I finish the conference, I get a lot of inspirations, and then, okay, this is, let's say, Monday morning, what do I do? Another question is, okay, I'm fine with running a day, and then how do I run my week? Thinking about planning a week is much different than running your day. It requires completely different thinking, and you probably know it. Step 3 is more about strategy. Okay, you make some conscious decision. Maybe you invest a few months to learn some new technology or get a new certificate. That's a strategy. That means you're channeling your energy into one specific, let's say, activity, and you have to let go something else. Maybe you cut your time spent on, I don't know, on relationships or other stuff. So that's step number 3. And step number 4 is more about connecting it to something, bigger passions, your talents, your values. And that will be, let's talk about that later when we talk about burnout. So what skills do we have on step 1? This is task list and calendar. How do you know what you are going to do? Of course, you can have Jira and multiple tools that let you know what you need to do. Maybe you have your personal task list full of uncertainty and hundreds of tasks. There are really good practices when it comes to task lists and calendars, but it's not a scope of this presentation. Another skill on step 1 is how do you focus? How do you get into this area that you just flow? Flow, and you know that feeling. And when I left engineering and talked with a lot of people, I realized how much flow do engineers experience compared to other people. We can flow in this channel for multiple hours, and when you were young, you could be surprised that it's already morning. You know that feeling maybe. It's like, oh my God, it's already morning. So many people don't even know that feeling, and we can experience it day by day. So how do you focus, and how do you avoid or cut on distractions? Another thing is email and communication that's bombarding you from multiple angles. How do you manage all these open loops of communication? And then how do you plan your day in 5 minutes? You can immediately even rate, as I'm speaking, each of these boxes from 0 to 10 or from 1 to 5, how much satisfied you are about this specific area in your life. And maybe you can just choose one that you think is the strongest or that you would like to work on that for the next, let's say, couple of weeks to improve it just by one. So if you're happy with running one day, then what do we need to organize your week and short-term projects? First, we have to list them. Really, there's just a few % of people that do it. We have task lists, but not many people have project lists or initiatives, something that you can look from a broader perspective. Okay, what do I do? My life is about my work, about this side project I'm running. It's about relationships I have, my physical activities, and stuff like that. And then, once a week, you can look from the broader perspective and see, okay, is it all in balance? Or maybe I invested a lot in this project, but my relationships got hurt a bit. So let's invest next week more into relationships and maybe cut down a bit on this project. It's all about balance. So it's on that level. Effective meetings. Let's not talk about it. There are multiple resources about that. And then weekly planning. Step 3, just 2 skills. First is making your knowledge base, your second brain. As you go, as you do multiple projects, you build your knowledge base, something that you can quickly access. Soon, your private knowledge base can be fed to ChatGPT, and you can ask your knowledge base specific questions that it can answer for you. But if you don't have this knowledge base, there's no base to feed the bigger system. And then how do you plan a period like 3 weeks or 3 months or 12 months? Is it even worth? Anyone who planned 12 months know how hard it is. I have a friend who planned his year in January. He was really happy about it and proud. And in February, he got to know that his wife is pregnant. And that was his plans for the year. In November, he already had a kid. So planning a year has a lot of sense, but not in this context, because it's more about dreaming your dream life, but then life happens. So there are a lot of practicalities that you can apply at this level, but it's not about trying to predict the future. This is not planning, this is dreaming. And step number 4 is about life full of meaning and purpose. And naturally, some of you love these first steps, step 1 and 2. So raise your hand if you naturally like step 1 and 2 is you. Okay, actually not that many. And if you love step 3 and 4, but 1 and 2 not that much, all right, the visionary ones. And if you actually are pretty comfortable with all 4, okay, yeah, so that's a problem. Usually, when I talk with people, they really miss the step 3 thing. So I'm happy with, there can be tweaks here and there. You can, your garbage collector that's in your brain could be run a little bit better. But you're more or less happy with your day and week. Maybe you have your values and goals, but then where's the connector? Okay, where is this this interface that connects your long-term vision and values with what you actually do today. Anderson Horowitz from Startup World would call this even type 1 and type 2. People that naturally gravitate toward visions and big ideas and are really bored with details. And people obsessed about tasks and completing. And usually they pair up and they form a startup, type 1 and type 2. But the more you know other steps, the more you can collaborate with people because they are not so, let's say, you're not getting so angry while talking with them. Because if you're obsessed with details, these visionary people are just assholes for you. So let's talk about two guys that founded a company, maybe you know one of them, who said these words. Woz and I very much like Bob Dylan's poetry, and we spend a lot of time thinking about a lot of that stuff. Who said it? Yeah, so Woz was a hint. That says Steve Jobs. So let's talk about poetry now. There's something about poetry that these two guys think it's important, so when you want to imitate them, let's talk about poetry. No, just joking. So this is how personal you can get. There are some, let's say, step 4 things connected to emotions and your passions that drive you and will be boring to the rest of the world. So this is how important it is. So when I asked the people, so if you now can choose even in your brain, if I was to speak for another 15 minutes about just one box, then which one would you choose? I asked that question in a survey. I got a few hundred responses from my students of my courses, and these were the results. They were, I don't know if I hit your responses or not, but people are usually most interested in these 3 boxes: focus and distractions, planning a day, but then life full of meaning and purpose. Nearly equal number of votes. These are the top 3, very close one to each other. So this is why I believe you, knowing the architectural stuff from detail to a very big picture, are uniquely skilled to be actually pretty good in time management, because you can move tiny task, that's 15 minutes of your time, to, okay, what are my values and where do I want to go? Let's now talk about step 1 stuff, which is focus versus communication, and then about step 4 stuff. Focus, really hard stuff, right? Especially nowadays. The most important thing for me with focus is that you have a choice. And this is not a choice we would like to have. The choice is, do I have my focus or do I have a teamwork? It's a really nasty choice to make. And what I can do now is I can switch to teamwork mode. You write on Slack, I read it immediately. You call me, I answer all calls. You send me an email, I have another display screen with an email open, so I answer in just a few minutes. I'm in teamwork mode. What's happened with my focus? It's non-existent. I cannot focus because the moment I start something, I get interrupted. So people are angry about it. They read Deep Work from Cal Newport, and Cal Newport says, anyone read that book? All right, not so many. So Deep Work. Cal Newport would say, okay, that's what matters. Make a small wooden house in the forest, cut all the communication channels, and just go with the flow. That's how writers, scientists can work, but it kills the teamwork. So what do? We have like 2 very nasty choices. Either I'm in teamwork and I cannot focus myself, or I'm fully focused, but there's no teamwork. So if a production went offline, okay, I'm really sorry. I'm really doing my code right now, so I cannot help you because I'm in my wooden hatch in the forest. And most of you are probably somewhere, maybe here. If there's a day of deployment and you don't have feature flags or things like that, we talked on the other room just recently, maybe you need to be more in the teamwork mode and sacrifice your focus for a bit because you really need to support the deployment. But there are other days, maybe, that you can code the feature and you can really cut on teamwork. How do we do that in practice? Another beautiful container that will be helpful for us. And why focus is important? Because without focus, flow experience cannot exist. Let me just pause here for a moment. I love flow experience, the moment that the world becomes non-existent. I'm just so much in the activity I do, I can't even recognize what is what. I lose the sense of self because I'm so immersed, and you all know that feeling, and we all love it. But without focus, it's impossible. So that's how critical it is to master the focus without killing the teamwork. Because fear of missing out, maybe someone wrote something on Slack, or what is this dot? It's production offline, or is it some nice GIF with, I don't know, some meme because we're making some fun? I don't know how old are you. I come from times that the CPUs had a single core. Can a multitasking operating system run on a single core? Yeah. This is from my times. I don't know if you know this CPU. It's like, if you can read the frequency, then tell me. Okay, 120 megahertz. That's Pentium, Intel Pentium. It's from my time. My first computer was ZX Spectrum, and then another one was with Pentium 75 megahertz, running with Windows and then Linux. How do we run multitasking on a single core? We have to switch contexts. Do you know how big or how long is this context switch between from task to task? Depending on the operating system, it could be from a few milliseconds to, let's say, 20 milliseconds. Why is that? Because if you make it longer, you lose the sense of multitasking. You're multitasking too slow, and it feels like it's lagging. But if you switch tasks too frequently, then you have to do cache reload and all this stuff. That takes a lot of time. So we have to do a long enough to run the cache, but not too long to not lose the multitasking stuff. We can use exactly the same concepts for your work, and for people, the best working blocks are from 20 to 90 minutes. So if any one of you is diagnosed with ADHD, then you start with 20 minutes. That's all you can handle, and maybe not even that. 90 minutes is seemed to be our hardware limitation. You can read about ultradian cycles. It seems that our, let's say, a lot of hormones run in cycles, so the moment you start your focus block, usually after maximum 90 minutes, it wears out. It's usually, if you want to have it repeated, 90 minutes would be maximum. Or if you're in a flow channel, you can make a break, and your brain still processing information. So that's why flow is so beautiful. So how do focus blocks work? You block all the distractions. You close your email program. You put your Slack or Teams or whatever into don't disturb mode. You have a clear plan what to do. You set a timer for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or 60. I work mostly in 60-minute blocks. And then go. And teamwork is killed for that time. And then when the timer rings, it's time to unblock all the pending communication. So if you have a very jam-packed team, and 20 minutes is all you can handle, you could also be on lunch or in a restroom or whatever else. 20 minutes should be fine for everyone. And then what I love about it is it's free for experimenting. You can run multiple short blocks, or you can have one 60, 90-minute block during a day. And it's really nice to experiment with that stuff. Why is it so hard? And now, please raise your hand if you had agreed with your team expected time for each communication channel you have. So what I mean is, like, we agreed that if I send you an email, I'll expect a response in 24 hours. And if I write on Slack, expected time is 1 hour. And if something requires more urgent response, I just call you. Anyone did that? Yes. Beautiful. That would be the next thing to do. Because without this, you have this fear of missing out. You're in your block, you flow in your focus, and suddenly your primal brain sends you a signal. What if somebody is waiting for you? This fear of missing out kicks in. And you don't know. And because you don't know, you start obsessing about it, and you check the Slack. And of course, bam, context switch, cache, and you're gone. Your focus is gone nearly forever. You have to restart your cycle again. So that will be number one thing to do, because once we agreed, I know I can flow in my focus for 60 minutes, and if something really urgent happens, they just call me, because we agreed on that. So it gets all the tension out of the picture. And my team and I have a backup channel. So if I'm in a focus mode, they see don't disturb, they know I'm in the focus mode, they know how to get me if the thing is really urgent and requires my immediate attention. So that will be about focus. Now you can think about a day as a container. It has your morning routine, it has your lunch, after work, a lot of containers. And beautiful thing is that this focus block is another container. You want to drink more water? Beautiful. Your focus block of, let's say, 45 minutes has a beautiful event called I'm starting. You're starting, you're doing your breath work for 60 seconds, you're drinking a few sips of water, and then you flow for 30 minutes, and at the end you have another event. And this way you can install such containers multiple times during the day. I had in my course a writer who had ADHD. It's like, how do you connect the two? His attention span was roughly 20 minutes, and so he had these focus block containers of 20 minutes, and his goal was to run 8 such blocks every day. But maybe you can start with just one of 45 minutes. That's all you can handle. That's fine. It's a great way for experimenting, because once you get into that zone that you focus, you will love it. And avoiding burnout, the last point. Few important concepts. For everything, you have a skill level and you have a challenge level. And if you think that your challenge is low and your skill is low, there is apathy. It's like, these days, maybe your skill is a little bit better, then you're just bored. That's what happened on studies for most people. You have bigger skill that actually there was a challenge. And maybe some of you get into this relaxation mode, that something is so easy for you that you just do it for relaxation. It doesn't have to be there, but some people do stuff like driving a car or doing something manual. It's so easy that it's relaxing for you. Let's think about the other axis when challenge is bigger and skill is low. You start to worry. Oh, wow. I'm about to speak at Devoxx on one of the stages. Maybe you even get to anxiety. I cannot sleep, I cannot focus. I stand, I look at you, and then, okay, what am I supposed to talk about? So when my skill raises, I'm going to arousal. Maybe I can do it, okay? Maybe if I'm focused enough, I can work on that presentation, and maybe I can handle it. And 2 most important boxes is control, which is okay, but if you raise challenge a bit, we get into flow. Games are beautiful with it. You are on level 17, you kill the biggest monster, beautiful. Now level 18 starts with 3 of that monsters. So games raise a challenge for you, exactly linear with your skills. That's why when you play most of the games, you're in constant flow mode. Now what happens at work? You start with flow, but then, because you're getting better and better, the challenge axis is getting wider and wider, and you start getting into control. And eventually, maybe, you get into boredom. That's how people burn out. When I have people in my, let's say, classroom trainings, people that are very close to burnout, they usually have most of their tasks in control and boredom, no emotions. It would even be better to be here or worry, because it makes you feel alive, okay? Production falls. There's one column in the database is gone. How do we handle that? It's better to have these, because that's what we talk about when we meet and drink beer in the evenings. It's not about, hey, last week we had a deployment, everything went fine and there were no bugs. It's like, who says such stories? It's usually like, okay, we had to present some screenshots for the customer that he thinks it all works still well, and then in the meantime, we are just dragging back up. So these are the stories full of emotions. So thing number 1, sometimes instead of lowering the challenge, you have to raise the challenge to be back in flow again. Technique number 2 is this 3 spheres. You can think about your last week, your last month, your last year. Passion, how much emotions you feel when you do it. Maybe your passion. I found my passion for personal productivity when I was a software developer, for sharing knowledge. That was something I could feel. Nobody can tell it, because this is the only person that knows it is you. You can feel it or you cannot. Another thing is talent. How do you know you have talent for something? You're better in this. You learn faster. You have intuition that others miss. I know my talent by comparing to others like you. Okay, it's natural for me. It's not natural for you. It means I have a talent. The third thing is value. How do I know this presentation had value for you? I don't know. Maybe you smile because you think it's stupid, or you smile because you think about your kids or anything else, or maybe you like it. So that's my question for you. I don't know about value unless you fill a survey for me or you rate this class. This is the only way for me to know if it had value for you. And the ultimate goal in our lives is to put these three things together. If we can do it at our work, that is something that drives my emotions, and I have a predisposition talent for that, and then it gives value to you, I'm in a beautiful zone. I can produce a lot of value with my natural skills. Another tool, if you can do personality assessments like StrengthsFinder from Gallup or any other, that's my results. I got to know that my theme number 1 is developer. I don't mean a software developer. That was a people developer, and that was back in 2007 when I realized that, okay, maybe my future is not in developing a code, but maybe more developing people. And that's how I slowly start to move toward management and then training. So that can really help you. Things like this book, The Personality Self-Portrait, great help for me. I realized that my 2 best options, or let's say highest rated, were dramatic and conscientious. That's the story of my life. I love when everything is in order. I love structures. I put things into boxes. And then I love dramatic events. I love emotions. That's why I also do music and more. When I pair and I have friends, usually they have adventurous theme in their assessments. Because with adventurous people, there's a lot of emotions and dramatic events. That's how I run my life, basically. So, just a short wrap-up, what you can do with that in practice. Just a few words on me if you want to connect. I would like to be an advocate for the rest of my life about something that I call human-centered productivity. It's not about how much you do stuff, it's about what life you live and how much you enjoy it. You can connect me on LinkedIn or find on fourstepproductivity.com. There's a newsletter. I do free webinars. I have multiple courses. Focus and Distractions is ready, and I'm working on 9 more. So it will take me probably 2 more years thinking about strategy. And if you want to connect with my music, can be found on SoundCloud and Instagram as Primal Touch Music. It started last month, so it'll be a fun journey. So we talked about some introductory concepts, then habits and habit containers, so that naturally you have these listeners in your brain that can automate stuff for you for free. 4-step productivity, you can think about the activities you do in terms of 1 day, 1 week, maybe more long-term strategy and your talents. Focus communication, this nasty choice of your focus versus other team, versus teamwork, and this focus blocks as a type of container, and a few techniques to burnout or detect that you're very approaching it. So we don't have much time for questions, just a few call to actions, so what you can do, and then you already can hear the lunch and your primal brain is kicking in, I know. So you can list your habits containers that you already have. So what events are already there in your day that you can use as triggers for installing habits? Drinking more water, maybe doing exercise, maybe relieving your back pain, moving a bit, breath work, whatever. You already have such a container, or you can install a new one. One simple 2-minute habit. You have to rule out all the decisions. So note exercising. It can be, I do 10 breaths for 4 seconds breath in, 8 seconds breath out, and I count to 10. Yeah, that's a habit that you can really automate because there's no decision involved. You can rate these 4 steps of productivity, and you can improve or focus for under a week or 2 on just one and improve it by 1. Seriously, read poetry. or actually study more what you enjoy, what makes you alive. For me, about communication, focus blocks, coming back to your team and making an agreement on communication channels. Okay, guys, email 24 hours, Slack 30, 40 minutes. If something is more urgent, we just make a call. And if you have that hierarchy, you can flow as much as you want. Experiment with focus blocks, maybe in the morning, maybe in the afternoon, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 60 minutes, maybe more shorter blocks, maybe one very big block of 90 minutes. Just experiment and find your optimum. And the last one, you can make personality tests, ask for feedback from your boss, from your colleagues, because ultimately it comes back to this passion box, talent box, and value box. And I really ask you to give feedback for this presentation, because this is the way I learn how much value I gave you and what can I do better in the next presentation. So thank you. Have a really great lunch. Thank you for your 50 minutes of your time that nobody will give you back. And see you. If you want to stay and talk, I'll be wandering around on a corridor or stay here for another 10 minutes. But I know you prefer staying in a queue, because we engineers love queues. Thank you.